Hello and welcome to Introduction to Humanities. Part of our task during this module is for you to try to figure out exactly what are the humanities. So I'm not going to try to completely give it away. The humanities are, it turns out, a very difficult thing to pin down with a precise definition. So I can tell you sort of what the course is going to be like. Humanities are, or is, the study of what it means to be human. It's the study of us. It has to do with looking at the different ways that we as human beings like to express ourselves to each other. So, sort of as a case in point, I like to use an analogy. If you might think of a few squirrels sitting in a tree, and probably this doesn't occur to them. One squirrel says to the other one, "Hey, you know, I've got an idea. I want to write a fictional story and see if you guys," by that I mean squirrels, "actually enjoy it." We would call that literature. Another squirrel says, "Hey, I've got a better idea." And that would be the squirrel talking. "Why don't we create costumes, perform the fictional story on stage, and call it theater?" Another squirrel, of course, then seconds with, "Genius." The other squirrel comes in and says, "You know what, I think that would be much better if we had a musical score." So that would be like a musical production. And then finally, going with the analogy, as they start to examine these things, it gets to the point where another squirrel says, "You know, I've been pondering the very nature of my existence and what it means to be a squirrel and whether or not I have consciousness above and beyond the mere neurons and synapses firing in my brain." We would call that philosophy of mind. Okay, so I think you kind of get the idea. Humanities has to do with the study of things that humans like to do, which goes above and beyond the bare necessities of life. Now, what would some of those things be? Well, classically in the canon of humanities, we would have visual art, and you can imagine this starting back when some of our ancestors actually drew images on a cave wall. It evolves through being paintings. We make our buildings with artistic notions in mind. Another type of genre would be, for example, theater, as I mentioned earlier, where you would actually try to perform and express the human condition by means of acting and production. Music becomes very popular, of course, throughout the history of humanity as well. And I want you to try to think for a moment, imagine a world without music. Because I think almost every one of us has a favorite style or styles of music, and we really enjoy this auditory experience. And of course, what you want to keep in mind is, to be a human being then is to try to experience these things, these types of expressions that we create for each other. Now, part of what this course is, and I'll have to admit it, is sort of an experience of saying, okay, this is what happens when academics comes in and tries to analyze what it means to be human and starts to analyze what the nature of art is, an artistic expression. Well, this, of course, is in part true. But what I want you to think about is, what is the practical application of this course? Well, I think probably one of the biggest practical applications is that you're going to be able to, as a result of this class, have a deeper and richer experience when you actually engage with any of these artistic forms. So, for example, if you go to a museum, after you take this course, the intention is that you have a skill set and some background information that will help you enjoy this experience at a deeper level. The next time you go to a movie to see a film, you'll be able to look at it at a much deeper, in a much deeper way, with a much deeper perspective. The next time that you read a newspaper article, you'll be able to understand it at a deeper level. The next time you read a novel, the next time you listen to and watch a music video, the next time you go to a concert, All of these things, and the whole point of studying the humanities in education, is to help you become a more well-rounded individual. It's something that we call the aesthetic experience. Now, you'll be reading about that early on in the course. The aesthetic experience is something like this. Again, it's a difficult thing to completely nail down, but it has to do with trying to get an understanding of and the actual action of experiencing beauty. Aesthetics is the study of beauty, trying to figure out what is beautiful and why humans are somewhat obsessed with trying to figure out what it is, and that we're not sure exactly what it is, but we know we like it. So part of the course is to try to get you to have a more deeply satisfying aesthetic experience. And you have an aesthetic experience, for example, when you are viewing art, or when you are viewing a film, or when you are watching a dance production, or when you are reading a book. So all of these things we're going to approach in what we call an interdisciplinary way. So we're going to see what sorts of things do these different artistic forms have in common? What is it like to experience them? How do we experience them at a deeper level? So in a nutshell, that's what this course is about. But to add a little flavor to it, this course also is an enhanced worldview course. So at the same time, we're going to make sure that we give you a healthy dose of artistic expressions from as many cultures around the world as we can. And typically speaking, we think of our culture as being Western culture that evolves out of Europe, that has its roots in ancient Greece. And we contrast that with non-Western culture, sometimes called Eastern culture, that is primarily culture that has evolved out of Asia and out of many of the indigenous peoples, for example, Native North Americans and Native South Americans, Aborigines, etc., who had their own deep artistic expressions and culture prior to exposure to the Western culture. So, as you explore this course, I hope you'll keep this in mind, that our overall goal is for you to have a more enriched experience as you engage in the arts throughout the rest of your life. Thank you.